Because we have Mike.
Because my cat's... Oh, okay.
We have Mike from Ohio who wants to talk about his belief in creation as a Germanic polytheist. The complexity of the brain implies design, so he says. So let's see what Mike has to say. Mike, welcome to Talk Heathen.
Lloyd, Katie, hey, I love you guys. I love your show. Thank you so much.
Do you love us, though? Do you love us, Mike? Do you really?
Very much so, yes.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. I'm feeling loved, and I'm fascinated to hear your question or hear your argument.
Real quick, I do want to say I think that you gave that caller from Minnesota great advice for his sister. That was a beautiful call. That was awesome.
Thank you.
So, I was a Christian, and I was going through Bible college. And then when I started studying the Bible, especially the Old Testament, and it's a lot of the same conversations that you all have with slavery and morality, and it really made me question. I want to give Matt Dillahunty also a huge shout-out, because when I was coming out of Christianity and detaching, he really helped me see that as well. But I still believed in a creation. It just seemed like you said, what I told the caller, the complexity of the human body, even through evolution. The reproductive system, birth, the brain. It just seems to me that that's just too. I can't think of the word I want to use. For a random, chance, it just seems too slim.
Okay. So for me, I don't struggle with the complexity of the body, because I come from a fundamentalist background. And one of the things that I first checked on when I was challenging my fundamentalist beliefs was this idea that evolution is a false teaching, which is what Jehovah's Witnesses are told. And interestingly, in their propaganda that they print to persuade people of this, they use misquotes. They misquote scientists, which was telling me, maybe there's something not quite right here. And then when I actually investigated evolution and learned about how natural selection really works, in other words, it's not like, you have walnut, sparrow, monkey, human. It's far more sophisticated than that. So when you understand the process to a reasonable degree, I don't think I could ever say that I understand it fully, like in a scientific way. But when you understand it to a reasonable degree, it just makes total sense, even in cases such as, I don't know, the human eye, for example. So are you able to kind of be a bit more specific as to why complexity precludes evolution?
I'm with you. I'm not very well versed in science like that. So unfortunately, I'm probably not able to give a real good conversation. If I'm changing I'm not trying to change the subject. If I am, just please let me know. I know you will.
I'll drag you back. Don't you do that on me, Mike. Come on. You love me. If you really love me, you won't change the subject.
I'm not. I'm not trying to change the subject. I'm trying to go at it from a way I can explain it. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's say that an asteroid landed on the Earth, and there was this cosmic cesspool, and that's what started life. It still seems that with the brain and the control that it has over the body, that it just seems like it was a design. So even with natural selection, it still started somewhere else.
When I think about this, I know that this is maybe a little bit of there's a false dichotomy being presented often when we have this discussion of evolution versus like intelligent design. And I always think that if there's any kind of discussion between two positions here, like evolution and something else. It's certainly not intelligent design. We could say there was like bad design versus evolution, and maybe there are some other options too that we haven't investigated. But like, for example, sometimes when I'm eating, I bite my own tongue, and like my teeth at the bottom are slightly crooked because, you know, I'm British and they have to be, but that's because my teeth are too big for my mouth. Like if I was designed, there were so many problems with humans, so many terrible designs that I, a mere mortal, could do a better job of. And if this has been created by some god, like there are so many random weird things in humans. And a good example is like our appendix. We have this thing which looks like what a lot of other mammals have, and they all use it for something, but we don't. And sometimes it causes us to die. There's so many little things like that, that if we were designed as humans, as we are, then we're either designed by an idiot or someone who's kind of incompetent, or by someone who's having a laugh. So like, I think that it's worth like doing some more research and understanding kind of what evolution is. I know like on these scales, the numbers involved, just, it's so hard to get your mind around. If you say, oh, you know, life started whatever millions of years ago, billions of years ago, and then it's just changed slowly over time, and now we've got humans, you're like, that seems pretty wacky. But like the scale of the time involved here is so big, and the amount of like cell divisions there's been in that time, and the amount of animals that have reproduced across the whole earth, the numbers here are so incredible that you just cannot get your mind around them. And I think that can often make you feel like, evolution seems kind of unlikely to me, and like humans work kind of well, so they must have been designed by something. But I think like considering that humans are pretty badly designed, and then also looking at, you know, the actual science behind evolution and seeing like common ancestors, and seeing like the eye, as Lloyd mentioned, is a really good example. We actually have in living creatures today, everything from a single cell, which can just detect whether there's light or not, all the way up to eyes more advanced than ours, which can see polarized light and a wider range of the electromagnetic spectrum and can focus faster. And there's every single step in between, and we can actually see those. And we can see them in animals which have shared ancestry, where their eyes are very similar, and they have you can see that there's like a similar evolutionary route for them. And I think that just seeing these kind of things can help your mind get around what it is that experts and scientists are asserting. Because if you just say, oh, you know, there was a meteor and suddenly 14 billion years later, here we are, that sounds very incredible. But if instead someone's like, oh, look, actually, like goats have a very similar stomach to humans, but theirs works in a slightly different way. And actually, if we go back and see where our like common ancestor is, that had a similar stomach too. But you can see how goats have developed to being able to eat like grass and literally everything, and humans haven't. And we have the same organs, but one of them doesn't. Anyway, like you can see this, and it can help you get your mind around it more, I think is what the argument I'm going for here.
Well, I'll tell you, Katie, that was a really, really, really good point. I do not have any real rebuttal for that other than to go into lore, and I know that's not acceptable in this conversation. So that's got
go to who?
Something to think about.
Who are you going to, Lloyd?
Say again?
No, law. I think he means like religious law.
Like for me as a Germanic polytheist, you know, to talk about the lore and the, you know, how it explains how creation
L-O-R-E.
like
L-O-R-E, is it?
Bible, and I know that's. Say again?
It's when you say law, do you mean L-O-R-E?
Yes, lore.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Or
that's okay.
The stories for a pagan and a polytheist, the lore. I mean, we really don't have the Bible, of course, but you know, there are stories about how things happened to creation, but I know that's not acceptable in this conversation because I can't prove it. So really what Katie said, I have no rebuttal for that. But
I think
tell you, it was
a lot of it, and can I just say as well, you know, I've been there. I've been in this situation where I'm perplexed by evolution and find it baffling. All I can say is that I personally, at this point in my life, find it invigorating to not have all the answers, and invigorating to research something that I'm not that sure about. And when I went down that particular rabbit hole with evolution, I found the information I came across incredibly satisfying. For example, one thing that creationists often do is they bundle together abiogenesis with evolution by natural selection. Now, when we're talking about the complexity of the body, there are evolutionary answers for everything in our bodies. And as Katie pointed out, our bodies are by no means perfect. I know you might look at my body and say, but Lloyd, come on, the body has to be perfect. But,
You're the man.
but seriously, when it comes to the meteor thing and chemicals and abiogenesis, I understand it gets a little bit harder to grasp, although there are reasons why scientists put so much time and effort and research into that. It turns out chemicals can be so much more complicated than you and I remember from our science lessons in the chemistry lab. You know, chemicals can do incredible things, and it doesn't surprise me that given infinite possibilities for a certain chemical to react with another chemical and get it wrong, eventually you could have a sophisticated chemical that can remember information. And once you have that, that's when, as I understand it, evolution by natural selection can take over, and we can start to get the complexity that we see today. But that's how I understand it. I would thoroughly recommend making this an area of research. Once you're done consulting law, consult some of the science books, and then, if nothing else, you'll be better informed as to what evolutionists and atheists are saying when they talk about life arising naturally.
I will do that. I will.
Wicked.
Wonderful.
Thank you.